But anyway, so I'm going all over. It's okay. I feel that I'm not to start at the beginning of the story and go to the end of the story, Dan. I feel I'm just supposed to go with what's coming in my head.
Welcome to another episode of Artistic Mission, the visual arts podcast. I'm Dan Jabor, your host. Today we've got kind of a special episode. I mean, they're all special, let's be honest. We have an interview with Wendell Phillips, Phil Berwick III. Phil Berwick, as I have known him for the past probably 4 or 5 years, super nice guy. I first met him when he was hanging his Merferd plywood statuettes on every available surface that he could. In the time since then, that Merferd character has completely blown up. Every time I drive in the city, I see a fucking Merferd somewhere. He's getting him out there in a big way. And I think he's completely fascinating. So without further ado, here's the interview. All right, tell me your name. Tell me what you do.
So, you can call me Phil, like you've been calling me, but 2 years ago, when my wife and I moved into Ferguson after the Ferguson unrest, I began to use my full birth name. Wendell Phillips was an abolitionist, and I'm proud of my Indiana heritage, and I'm Wendell Phillips Berwick III. And so all my new friends know me as Wendell, but you can call me Phil.
All right. And what do you do?
You know, trees have been such a huge part of my life. I've been an arborist for 40 years. I started way back when we were called tree surgeons. Starting in 91 as living tree care, producing a lot of work for many families. But the farm and house got taken in 2008. I borrowed too much money for good equipment for good guys, then the economy tanked. So my answer to that is I do trees and Merferd.
So he's something that you've been doing nonstop since you were a kid?
Yeah, Merferd goes way, way back to, I think it probably started drawing him in 1969 in junior high, but I remember in 1972, when I was a sort of a hippie / greaser / this and that, you know, we all had our little cliques there. I had friends in all camps, but my table mate, one day he says, Berwick, you're always drawing that little dude. What's his name? And Merferd came out of my mouth. I can just remember Merferd came out of my mouth, man. I don't know from where, but there it was. And so when I had come down to Missouri to go to seminary, before going back into the tree trade, Merferd would be all over my seminary work. Merferd was drawn all over my classmates' books and my classmates' papers. And then I have to this day a little challenge. Let's say, for instance, I treat myself to a burger. I'll pull in now for that coffee or whatever, and grab. I always have a pile of paper, and in the time that gal or guy took my order, they got a Merferd, and it invariably makes their day. And I'll pull up to the other window, and then my next challenge is who's ever taken my credit card or their money, before they can give me my change or credit card back, they get a Merferd. So I've gotten to draw them real fast. You know, and even today when people ask me, are you an artist? I am in awe. I'm like, oh, not really. Because I compare my work to other artists I know that my hat's off to. But then lately I've been saying, yeah, I am an artist.
You've been making art nonstop for 40 years.
Yeah.
I think that's beyond question at this point.
So, yeah, I guess I'm an artist. You know, Dan, one of the best. Yeah, I'm not making any money at them, but I tell you what, to just feel, to hear people saying, man, I get such a good feeling when I look at Merferd. That, you know, that's blessed me
You started out drawing Merfords, and then at some point you went to painting them on plywood?
Well, this is what happened. So before I was painting them on the streets, 20 years ago, I made half a dozen of them in my barn on a slow August, and I put living tree care on them. They were my contractor sign. That's the first time it came off of paper. So I have Merfords in 6 different tree climbing positions, and they were rendered on both sides so that when they turn around in the wind, there'd always be a Merferd. And living tree care was emblazoned on his chest. Sometimes I'd forget what tree customer I hung him in after doing the job, and someone would call and say, "Phil, can you take your little bear out of my tree?" And I said, "Mrs. Miller, he's not a bear, he's a Merferd. But yeah, I'll come and take him out of your tree." And sometimes they come to take him out of the tree, and they'd be like, "Can you leave him in our tree? We really like him." And so over the period of many years doing tree work, Merferd would come with the crew, and he'd be up there. Instead of a boring contractor sign, trees trimmed by living tree care might be in the ground, but living tree care would always be on Merford's chest. And one of my guys said, "Phil, you know what? You need to take living tree care off of Merferd and let Merferd be Merferd." And it took me a year to do that, and I finally got the crew, and I said, "Let's just help me sand them down." So I sanded all the Merfords down, and I repainted him. And so after I had to let my guys go, and they all went to better homes where they do tree work for line clearance companies or their own businesses now, I all of a sudden had time on my hands to do my art. And my prayer and goal from the beginning was that the love of God would come through Merferd, that he would be able to bless neighborhoods, that he could stop crime. Now that's a pretty audacious thing to think that your art could maybe do something to stop crime. But that is my prayer. That's what I'm hoping for, and that's why I started painting him in the hood after the Ferguson unrest and the whole Paint for Peace thing.
And what was Paint for Peace?
So after the Darren Wilson decision, people started to burn it down. They started burning minority businesses down, and they burned down businesses in Dulwood and burned down businesses in Jennings, and a lot of these people were not even from Ferguson. And they were coming from all over the United States just to create chaos and anarchy in the city. And granted, stuff had to come to the surface, but it was overdone by the media, and it was big business. I saw the media, I watched them set up their stages and their cameras and their lights and action, and it was big business. You know, they just were like flies and shit, man. They were like vultures on a dead rabbit. It was ridiculous. And so the stigma that painted us all as a bunch of bigots and racists, the damage was done. But what the world didn't see was that after the riots, most businesses remained and weren't burned to the ground, but they were busted up, doors, windows, whatever, plywood slapped on top. And many people were living here at the time and really didn't even have a clue what was going on. You know, what's funny is I couldn't get one of my comrades from the St. Louis Artists Guild to come anywhere near Ferguson. You know, even though they lived in the county.
Right.
Because it was painted like such a dangerous place. But 300 to 350 mom and pop artists and teenage artists, non-artists like me who now calls myself artists, my daughters are coming out. Every square inch of hundreds of boards of plywood got painted with themes of love, peace, justice, brotherly love, unity, you name it, doves, rainbows, flowers, dragons, unicorns, man. And so during that time, Merferd was on 6 or 7 places, boarded up buildings in Ferguson and Dulwood and Jennings. When Paint for Peace ended and there wasn't any plywood left to paint, I was like the kid that doesn't want to go home from camp. I started cruising down Martin Luther King. Desolate. Looked 10 times worse than Ferguson. And it's looked like that for decades because of purposeful blighting of the city of St. Louis. So Merferd started getting painted on some of these abandoned buildings. And, you know, I got out of my pickup in places that most white guys I know would not want to be getting out of their pickup and painting, but I didn't have a fear. I would case the place out and pray, just try to take a deep breath and believe that God had a couple angels on my back. But I would just be at peace. And the only feedback, I'd have people coming by and saying, dude, you did that? You did that? And I'd be, yeah. I said, man, that's tight, man. That's tight, man. Thank you for coming here and doing that. It just kept making me want to do it. So I had them in various parts of North St. Louis, and I started moving down into South St. Louis. And it was when I painted him over a really big dick. And then it had some vulgarity going along with that appendage, and it was in a real prominent corner where people from all over the world could see this vulgarity, and I just don't like vulgarity. Yeah, so I put my iPhone down and I videotaped myself doing it, and I put a big Merferd there, just a simple Merferd, just white. That's all I had was a can of white, and then I put a Bible verse that said, "The power of life and death is in the tongue." That was at Grand in Miami. And I found out later a couple of school teachers were kind of using it for their kids. And then right after that, then I went to a big billboard that had been bugging me for many months. And that billboard had a big gang tag. Now, up to this point, I really didn't know the seriousness of painting over, someone's tag. I thought the rules of the street used to be that if you have something better than some other shitty stuff, you could paint over it and everyone would be cool with it. But I was to find out that the rules had changed.
You kind of started a mini graffiti war
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah. And the war was all of them against me, because what I did, I took this tag, it was Canoe. And Canoe, I found out later, I was really wondering how he had done that. It's called a sting. You fill a fire extinguisher full of paint and you blast the snot out of whatever you're doing, and it's so ugly, man. It's ugly. I mean, but it's billions of spots of paint. So I was up there wondering, how did they do this? I went and I made the big Sting gang tag, a huge billboard, into a morphodite-looking Merferd. And I incorporated the tag on purpose. It was the goofiest looking Murph I ever did. But I went back to Grand in Miami and I thought, wait, I got to put his name out there. I've been painting him for years and I haven't put his name next to him out in the streets. So I put Merferd at Grand in Miami, and then I went back to the billboard and I wrote Merferd on the billboard. And then my little Facebook Merferd page that had been lying dormant for years, with one like a week or something. And I did my little app. I'd gotten a free app called Splice that one of my daughters showed me how to use. And I edited like a couple hours of me painting the Grand in Miami Merferd down to a couple minutes, and then I did the same with the Morganford Merferd. And all of a sudden, Merford's blowing up. People are starting to talk about him. Thousands of people are all of a sudden starting to talk about him. And that's when the Riverfront Times contacted me.
Now, they followed you around for a little while, watching you work and such.
So Thomas Crone called. Thomas and I talked, and he was totally cool with meeting in a couple days. And I figured it had to be good because they asked if Merferd could hold their logo on the front page. So the story comes out, and the story was a great story. But the one thing Thomas made me out to be, and my wife said they had to make you out to be a renegade because it's the Riverfront Times, and you do what you do. And someone said, Berwick, you are a renegade. Oh, that's cool. But it made it sound like that this is what I do. I paint over everybody's stuff. But I did it in 2 instances. But it cost me 25 Merfords. Almost every painting up to date now has been wiped out. There's a couple, 3 guys specifically. I'll name them because they must be proud of it. If you see the Rogue tag, R-O-A-G, and the Kazi tag, they've made life miserable for Merferd. The LDs wiped them out. But I really need to commend them because a couple of these guys, Durag and Canoe, they crashed a barbecue I had. Others wanted to, I heard, some of these taggers literally wanted to come find me and sting me and sting us. Like, instead of a drive-by shooting, just come by with a fire extinguisher.
Spray paint all over you.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about the Merferd barbecues.
I will. I went back and I cleaned up the Morgan Ford Merferd, and then the story comes out, and within a week, what I didn't tell you was after I painted over the appendage and the vulgarity, I filled up 6 other panels with guitar playing Merfords, and a Merford that said hope, a Merford that said love, a Merford that said faith, and a Merford that said respect. Because I've done faith, hope, love, and respect. And I did those panels in a course of 3 days. They didn't know that me and my sidekick Cap would pull my bucket truck or pickup truck to the curb, put safety cones on, put on our hard hat and our orange vest, and in broad daylight walk up to the boarded up building and paint like we belonged there. You know, cops would come by, give us a thumbs up, fire department, honk honk. And it was kind of open season. I was like open season. It doesn't matter if it's a board. If you get busted, if someone wants to press charges, even though I don't paint on brick and mortar, it could still be a felony and $750 and time in jail.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was risky because I was in open daylight at the corner of Grand and Miami doing this. After the story comes out, one day they're all wiped out. They're just all whited out. Like crap, you know. But it backfired on the ones that did it because a lot of people were pissed off, way more pissed off than me. And I had a follow-up story online by the Riverfront Times about Berwick's Merfords being buffed. So the barbecues. 3 weekends in a row, sort of in a row, we had a barbecue. And me and Cap barbecued, hickory smoke, man. People would come and play guitars and bongos. And I used it as a smoke screen to redo the Merfords. 3 times. Let's see. 1. So I redid them. They got buffed again.
You had a lot of fans and stuff come to those barbecues.
Yeah, we
right?
did. Yeah, we did.
You got to meet a lot of the people.
It was awesome. It was. It was a lot of fun. Oh, it was so fun. And the sidewalk is so huge there. And that building has so much potential. But the fucking city, oh my gosh. 12 or 13 shareholders bought that building. They wanted to make it into an artsy place again. And the city put such a multi-million-dollar requirement on them to bring it up to the city's standard of snuff that to this day they walked away from it. They couldn't bear up under that. So one day these 2 dudes show up, and he said, "Hey man, you know, this is Canoe. I'm Durag. Free the Herb didn't buff out your Merfords." Because the RFT kind of implicated that Free the Herb had buffed out my Merfords because Free the Herb did come by and put Free the Herb on all my panels. And I met Free the Herb. He's cool. I like him. He likes me. And we really hit it off. I really like him. And there's no way he would ever want me to tell you his name, of course. All these guys are pretty secretive about that.
No, that's cool.
And it's interesting. It's a whole, you know, it's the life, you know. So these 2 guys are sitting there talking to me saying, "Do you want to know who buffed out your stuff?" I said, "Yes, I'd love to know who buffed out my Merc." And Durag points at Canoe. Durag, man, he's like strong looking, and I can tell he's a fighter. You know, you can just look at someone and tell they can fight. And then Canoe is a tall, skinny guy. Durag looks at Canoe and says, "He did it." I went, "Wow." I said, "Thanks for telling me." I said, now I want to know why. And they said, "Because of Morgan Ford and Chippewa." I said, "But I incorporated Merferd into your tag." And he said, "But then you went and cleaned it up." So they were kind of proud of the fact that I made Merferd out of their tag until I went and cleaned up their lineage. They don't want their letters touched. I mean, that's war. But they were okay with Merferd going up there until I went and cleaned up their lines. So They then informed me that something had to be done. And I'm realizing that, they might listen to this, or some friends might listen to this, but I'm not telling the story to say these guys were pricks. I'm saying I thought they were gentlemen to come and talk to me and approach me like this, rather than some threats that I got from other people, to kick my ass and sting me and all my friends with pain. And a lot of people may think that I'm a pussy for agreeing with this, but the problem was that Canoe would be seen by the whole graffiti world as a pussy if they didn't either kick the shit out of me, or basically they were letting me know there would not be a Merferd for the rest of my life that would be safe. So I said, "Do you want your lines back? Is that what you're saying?" And they said, "That's what we're saying." So we arranged for me to go back there and let Canoe come up and totally expose myself again. And right now I'm with doubly exposed, right?
Right.
My heart's beating. I really don't want to do this, but I really didn't want Merferd hounded for the rest of his life all over St. Louis. And everyone knew where I was, and the LDs actually, I saw him drive past my house and scope me out. So I agreed to take him up in my bucket truck and put the lineage back around the Merferd like he was. However, before the sun went down, I get a text from a fan, and I start getting photos from a Merferd fan. Someone is whitewashing the Morgan Ford Chippewa billboard.
Property owners got to it.
And it wasn't Canoe, because it was a fat guy up on a ladder. The city had condemned the lot.
Oh, man.
Even though the LD tag was up there for almost a year, short amount of time, Merford's up there, the city condemns the lot because of the billboard. And fans were crushed, man. Merford fans were crushed down there because it was just such a desolate, empty hole. And so I texted Canoe and I said, "You know what? Billboard's whitewashed." I was kind of on the one-way greed, but on the other way, a little kind of satisfied that I didn't have to go up there and do something anal like that. So I think God might have saved me. I don't give him enough credit. It could have just been chance. But within a couple weeks, Canoe stung it again. Well, several months went by, and I called him on the 4th of July. This time asking permission. He gave me permission and went up and I painted a Merferd. And it was the stupidest time because I knew it was going to rain. I didn't have any spray cans when I painted him by hand. It was an awesome Merferd, but he got totally washed. A downpour happened and he got washed out.
Oh,
Several more months go by and Canoe's big thing still up there. I called him again back in around Halloween. Somewhere between that and Thanksgiving, I asked him for permission again. He says, I'm cool with it, just don't touch my lines. And so I redid him. Merferd came back, and it was short-lived again. It was torn down, and a new, now someone finally sold some advertising spot on it. It's been a fun cat and mouse game. Since then, 25 Merfords, like I say, have been wiped out. Not by the LDs anymore, but just by some other guys. Most of the graphers are cool with Merferd, but the graffiti world, they like to be under cover of darkness, and they kind of like running from each other or at each other or fighting each other or threatening each other and running from the cops. I mean, wearing the hoodies, coming out at night, doing the freight yards, doing buildings. I get some of these young punks these days who are like, Berwick's not a grapher. Some people really got pissed off because St. Louis Underground is now showing my work. I want to put in a plug for AJ and St. Louis Underground Gallery on 30. He caters to a lot of the graphers. That's a term for graffiti artists, which St. Louis has some really quality graffiti artists. I'm not into defacing a viable building, though. If it's falling apart and it's boarded up, that's an open canvas. That's a different story. I want to get them out there, and I'm always thinking about what's next. I'm looking at my old wooden Merfords one day, and I'm thinking, wow, yeah, because I just had no want to anymore to paint them anymore, you know. So I started making new ones with more vibrant colors. You can see the old one hanging there, the old stain.
Yeah.
And I started putting 2 and 3 coats of polyurethane on them. I soak them in linseed oil. I start hanging them from hard to get at places around the city. And a friend of mine who owns it's called Vertical Voyages, John Richards. He and his gal take people up into the canopy of trees. It's a beautiful thing to see. And he takes people on personal mountain climbing expeditions. And he uses a lot of tree climbing rope. And he has donated 1,000 feet of rope to me. I will have enough Merferd rope for many years. So I purposely did 25 of these guys. This was a feat because it takes me all day to do these. Now remember, I have a full-time tree company, and I don't have anyone working for me now except for me, right?
Right.
And a part-time guy once in a while. And I had a goal to have them ready by Halloween. And I made the goal. And I started putting them up in various places around the city. For everyone that got buffed, I did a wood Merford. And I had a Where on Earth is Murph contest. And I would give a rhyme and a riddle. And Merford fans started playing like crazy. And
so there was a big interest in that.
yeah, Where on Earth is Murph? Now, I have a goal to make a couple dozen big Larry Rice for Mayor Merfords on plywood, and I got a cool way. I'm going to set them up on some derelict lots because I'm throwing myself into this for the next 30 days. You're going to start seeing Merford on some main drags on Kings Highway and Union and North St. Louis and this and that. We got till April 4th. April 4th is the general election. I, up to now, Dan, did not want to be political.
Well, we can edit it out if you
No,
want.
no, don't edit it out. No. I'm saying in Merford's run, in Merford's wave of fame, becoming an icon in St. Louis, and I'm not using that word, others have told me that, I've really not wanted to use them to make political statements or have political favorites because he's got fans on the far left, he's got fans on the far right, he's got fans in between. But seeing how the city was going after the homeless shelter to shut it down got me so pissed off, righteously indignant, that I found myself this winter going to rallies, going to City Hall. I'm here to tell you that there's this evil afoot in the city. And this is why Merferd has gotten political, and he's going to be announcing Larry Rice for mayor for the heart of the city. Larry Rice for the heart of the city.
What's the future for Merferd beyond the election?
Yeah, so what's next? There's a friend of mine, a young man, Josh Heron, who is doing a documentary, The Man Behind the Merferd. And he started 2 years ago following me around Ferguson before Merferd ever got well known. And so he's got all this footage from when he first hit the streets to now. And I saw a trailer, and it is really good. And so we hope to enter it into a St. Louis Film Fest. And fortunately, a lot of the cool film fests are actually here in Missouri. And we want to go like up to Chicago and this and that. So we're going to take the documentary around. I want to go ahead of some of the cities he wants to do and hang some Merfords from trees and buildings.
That's a good idea.
So that when we bring the film into town, people will be intrigued about him. I have a tree care customer who was flipping out on Merferd a week or two ago, insisted that I meet with an artist friend of hers that knows artist friends that might have some ideas for him. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. Yeah, I'd like to do an adult coloring book because I just recently found out that they're a big fad right now. But I want him to continue to be the brand of brotherly love. Make people happy, make their day, make them feel good. Stir up the artist in them, maybe, And, well, this is the coolest thing yet. Interestingly, Merferd is in Pakistan.
Really?
Yeah. A young 18-year-old man named Raja Riji has been a Merferd fan for a year now.
And he's in Pakistan?
He's in Okara, Pakistan. And with the beauty of Facebook and Facebook video, you really get to see people. You get to see people like really see their house, see all this, see. And I've gotten to know him, know his family, see the nondescript house they live in, see the little room that they all sleep in. They got all over the Middle East. There's an upstairs. They spend a lot of their time on the roof. They do their washing and stuff on the roof. Okay, and below where they live is his father's church. They're Christians. Well, in the going back and forth over the months, he said, "Brother, I have a burden." I said, "What's your burden, Raja?" He said, "The Christian children in our town, many of them have to grow up in the brickyards." And he sent me pictures of these kids in these brickyards.
They're just making bricks?
Making bricks. Because they're not allowed in the Islamic schools. Now, a Christian will be allowed in an Islamic school if they're one of the few that actually are well-to-do. There's very few, Christians they're a minority. They're just like our minorities here. For generations back, the African American have not been as well-to-do as most of us white people. It's just the way it was. It's sadly the way it was. And so that is with the Christian minority in the majorly Islamic country, such as Pakistan. But he had a burden for the kids, that they would be able to go to school. And I corroborated what he said, and they are allowed in. Some that are allowed in schools, though, are forced to learn one religion, and that's Islam. And they can be mocked and ridiculed and this kind of thing. But I want to say, for the most part, most of the Islamists and Christian neighbors get along great in Pakistan, or other places. But there's radicals on both sides of any religion, that can tend to make life hard and are not led by love,
right?
And so I said, okay, let me talk to my friend. He's got a body shop up in Chicago because I can't do this on my own. I'm just not making that much money. But my friend agreed to partner with me, and we started the first free school in Pakistan. You ready for this? It's called the Merferd Mulder School. My buddy's name is Dave Mulder. He's very successful now. He has many body shops, actually. The Merferd Mulder School. He calls me back 2 or 3 weeks into the school. He said, "Brother, the whole town is happy for us. Muslim parents want to know if their children can go to our school." I said, "What does you and your father think?" He said, "We think we should let them in." I said, "I agree with that. Not just one religion is going to be taught at our free school. Kids are going to be taught Islam and Christianity, so that they grow up knowing each other's faith. It's beautiful. It's free." And he just called me today. He said, "Bro, it's grown from 16 to 60 kids. Within a few weeks, there's going to be 200 kids. We're actually wiring a little bit more money so they can get a bigger place. It's beautiful." And I actually think it might spread up throughout all of Pakistan. The Merferd Mulder School, Merferd Mulder School, Merferd Mulder School 5 times. And there's a banner, Merferd, man. Yeah, and he wants me to send him another Merferd. And the kids love Merferd. And he said, "Brother, they love Merferd." So I couldn't ask for anything better than that. It's beautiful. So we just are hiring another teacher. He is beautiful, wonderful young lady. You just love oozing out of him, and everyone is so grateful, so grateful. It's like stop it. Okay. okay, you know.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I was choked up this morning, and I'm choked up now because I'm like, wow. I asked him, are there any more kids working in the brickyard? He said, no, brother. He said, some of the older boys are now. He said, but I could hardly hang on with this kid. I mean, he's like, he wants to start a college now because I said, wait, college. So a college there is not like a college here. So this is a school for children, and then when the children, I think they reach 10 or 11, they go, their next school is not called middle school or junior high or high school like here, it's called college. So that'll be down the road. But I talked to my friend Dave Mulder this morning about it. He said, why don't we keep it free, tell Raja keep it free, but let parents who are a little bit more well-to-do, you know, they can start bringing some chickens to the teachers, you know, they can start giving what they can, and they can donate, you know, to this. We want to allow them to donate to the school for some that may be even more poor than them. I mean, a lot of the kids in the school don't even have shoes. We at least send some shoes over Christmas time. They're just the happiest kids. They're so hungry. They're so hungry to learn. It's just beautiful. I want to go to Pakistan, but you can't get a cheap flight to Pakistan. It's like $900 to $1,300. So, I mean, I've helped in the past with other ministries. Like in India, there's different castes, and the Dalit caste are the untouchables. And in years past, when Living Tree Care was doing well, we would help rescue orphans. I didn't go there personally, you know, and have orphanage. I was on a board that had orphanages there. But this is so cool and so different because there's a school named after Merferd.
But you've gone from putting Merferd onto, you know, your friend's homework and books to, you know, putting him on a school for kids who need it.
Yeah.
That's quite a full circle there.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. Well, hopefully you found that as interesting and fascinating as I did when I first heard it. Phil is definitely a very, very complicated and interesting individual. So that concludes this episode. If you are digging the show, you really like it, send me an email, podcast@danjabor.com. I love reading your emails and hearing feedback about the show. If you're enjoying the show, also consider subscribing to it on one of the many podcast services that this show is available through. We're on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn. We're on all the major services, so you should be able to find a place where you can subscribe and get the show on the regular. That way you don't miss an episode. So I appreciate you guys listening. This month, during the month of March, we're part of a group of podcasts that are doing more in the realm of awareness, trying to get more listeners. Podcasting has seen a huge surge of growth, but there's plenty of room for more. There's so many shows that need to find their audiences. So whether you're letting a friend know about the show or telling your friends, it doesn't even have to be this show, any podcast in general. If you can get your friends listening to podcasts, show them how to use the app on the phone. Show them how to download it on their desktop or on their laptop or on their tablet. You know, if you're hearing this, do your friends a favor and then help spread the word. Post it up on social media. Use the hashtag tripod, TRYPOD. We want to try to get as many listeners as we can. By growing the listener base, we can grow the industry. So anyway, that's it for this week. Catch us again in 2 weeks with a new episode. And in the meantime, if you'd like some sneak peeks as to what's coming, consider joining our Patreon site at patreon.com, patreon.com/artisticmission. It won't come up on their search because we have it set for adult content. so that I don't have to censor anything, because censorship is evil. So, back in 2 weeks. Talk to you guys then.